Hi, Neil here from Small Business Big Ideas with another of my small business marketing tips. Still in the advertising section, we're going to be covering advertising for the next few days. And today's tip covers advertising in your local newspaper. This is something that I've got personal experience of. It's often one of the easiest, if not necessarily the cheapest, ways of advertising your business if you're a local business. One of the things that you need to think about is that I think local papers, just as with most print media, the circulations and readerships are declining. There's pros and cons to that. Obviously, that means your exposure is declining. But looking for the positive, that also means that the advertising rates should also be lower. So I suppose for a small business with a limited budget, it might mean that they can afford to advertise, whereas previously they couldn't. But obviously, there are limits to the exposure that you get. We'll cover it off in another tip video, but I think one of the biggest rivals to local newspaper advertising is Facebook, which offers very sophisticated local targeting options, and the barriers to entry, the cost for doing so, is significantly cheaper than the local newspapers. Generally, when you think about advertising in the local newspapers, I've taken out, on behalf of clients, certainly, double page spreads, full spreads. Myself personally, I've done, half page, quarter page ads, all the way down to, little classified ads. And, they have varying degrees of success, I suppose, depending on what you want out of them. Again, a newspaper is just a media channel, so the success of an ad really depends on what you want it to do. As with any advertising, as I am keen to say, a very small percentage of any target market is ready and willing and wanting to buy here and now. So if you do an ad in the local paper and it's very much based on a buy my stuff now sort of message, then chances are 90% 97% of the readers won't buy it now because they're not ready to buy it now. So what you need to think about is to plan your advertising in a way that isn't forcing them to buy now or go away. What you should be doing is using your advertising in a way to build a relationship with your potential target consumer, so that even if they're not ready to buy here and now, then they do feel as if they're getting to know you a little bit more through seeing the ad. I think I've touched on it before, but depending on what you read, the statistics are that you either need to interact with a consumer 7 times, or the most recent I've heard is 12 times, to take them from being cold to trusting you enough to buy. So getting them to see your ad in a local newspaper a number of times may help with that. One of the most successful ways, I think, of advertising in a local newspaper would be to, rather than having a very, buy my stuff style offer in the paper, would be almost to make the ad as an advertorial or looking very much like an editorial piece. So it can be you showing your knowledge and expertise on whatever subject matter you are an expert in, whatever your industry is. That way, it's building your expertise. It's building the trust amongst your target audience. Now, Depending on your relationship with the local paper, it may be a case that you buy an ad space and you just create your ad to look like an editorial. So there's quite a lot of copy. It's got you talking about something of interest to your target audience. One of the best ways of approaching it is to potentially approach the newspaper and see if you can get editorial space in return for advertising. So let's say you take out a half-page ad, but then they give you a half-page editorial on top, or quarter page, something like that. That way, it's very much compounding the benefits of advertising by giving you the chance to say something and be positioned as an authority. Now, one thing that I know with the local newspapers, the editorial team who are in charge of content, and the advertising sales team who are in charge of relieving you of your marketing budget, very much tend not to work hand in hand in collaboration, and often are fighting against each other. So it's sometimes a bit challenging to get them to buy into that sort of advert plus editorial deal. Depends on the individual newspaper. I'd say speak to your individual newspaper. But what you can do, and I think what is a tactic that you should be using, is if you're producing content for a blog or your website or your newsletter or something like that, and if you're not producing that content, you should be. What you should be doing is identifying the local newspaper sort of feature writer who deals with your industry. I mean, if you're in property or motoring or something like that, and the paper may even have a property journalist or a motoring journalist. If you're not in one of those industries, then it's likely that it will be the general business writer. But what you need to do is to get the contact details of the appropriate writer and also the editor. And what you should be doing is sending them a printed version of whatever content you're producing whenever you produce it. Don't email, because emails are not particularly intrusive and they can be deleted. But print it out on letterhead or what have you, make it nice, put it in an envelope and send it to the editor or the business writer or the appropriate writer, and accompany it with either a letter or a note or even just a post-it note to say, I thought you might find this of interest. And until they tell you to stop, then I would just continue doing that. Now, this is very much a slow burn tactic, and it may get you nothing for weeks or months, or depending on your local publication, it may get you nothing at all ever. But for the cost of a stamp every couple of weeks, it's a worthwhile exercise, because what it can do, well, it builds you as the authority in the mind of that journalist. So if they need a comment piece talking about your industry, then you will be front of mind, so they'll come to turn to you. And also what it can potentially offer up is the opportunity to actually have an editorial comment piece in the paper without you even asking. So some papers just won't entertain that. Others are very, very open and willing to get content from local businesses speaking about things that they know about. And it certainly is a very powerful way of using the local paper on top of advertising. Me personally, I would be looking to get that sort of editorial opportunity, or at least doing an advert in an editorial, so an advertorial style. I wouldn't be just pumping out ads saying, here's a special offer, buy my stuff now. So yeah, have a think, have a chat. Certainly make contact with your local paper if you haven't already done so. Find out the costs and what it takes to get you to advertise, and it is certainly an option for you to promote your local business. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks, bye.